Today is the 19th of September 2012. We are in Troy, New York at the Troy Senior Center. My name is Wayne Clark. I'm with the New York State Military Museum in Saratoga Springs, New York. Sir, for the record, would you please state your full name and date and place of birth, please?
Yes, my name is Wallace J. Curley. I'm from Troy, New York, and I was born in Troy and went to Troy Catholic High, the class of 46. And that's.
And when were you born?
I was born 9/3/28,
Okay.
September the 3rd, which was Labor Day.
Mm-hmm.
And I still celebrate Labor Day as my birthday.
Okay. And let me just go back a little bit here.
Yeah.
You mentioned about being in the New York Guard during World War II.
That I was in the Troy Armory
Mm-hmm.
on 15th Street. We had a regular, like a division up there, and these were all, we would go twice a week and drill,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the summertime we would go down to Camp Smith in Peekskill
Mm-hmm.
and walk up the big hill in Peekskill up to the camp and stay there for 2 weeks, 3 weeks at a time.
Now, did you get paid for that service?
No, we did not.
Okay.
Everything was volunteer.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about uniforms? Were they provided?
They were provided, yes.
Mm-hmm. And did you have to go through any kind of basic training?
Yes, we did. We did our basic training at the Troy Armory.
Oh, I see.
We learned all about the M1 rifle,
Mhm.
and every week we had a different class. 1 week was in the rifle division, and 1 was in the military. What you did in the military, the other one was preparing to go to Camp Smith and Peekskill.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you got down to Camp Smith, did you go out on the rifle range?
Yes, we did. You had to go out there 3 days a week, and we had the marksmen and the sharpshooters and all the different ones. You got medals
Mm-hmm.
from being on the rifle range, and then they would put where you hit. Everything they showed you, Maggie's drawers and the different ones that if you missed, and that's what they would do. They sent a white flag up, and if they didn't, they push. Where you hit the target, they'd give you credit for that.
Mm-hmm. Now, what kind of rifles were you using? at that time?
M1s.
Okay, you didn't have the old Springfields?
Well, some of them had Springfields, but I had the latest. We got the latest up.
I see.
There was the Springfield and the M1s were the because then you had to learn how to clean the rifle. That
Mhm.
was the most important, because if that catch could hit you, you lost the thumbnail.
Mm-hmm. Now, did you wear the World War I helmets, or did you have the newer World War II?
We had
ones?
the newer World War I, and you had a regular overseas cap.
Okay. All right. And did you enjoy your time in the
Oh
New York
yes, it
Guard?
was different. I'll tell you, it gave you, when you went in the regular army, it gave you a great plus, because you knew what to expect.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, when I was inducted in June of 46, we went to Camp Dix. We all got on the train. There was 150 of us, and we all landed in Fort Dix.
Mm-hmm.
And we come out the first day I was in the Army. I remember we went lined up for breakfast. The 2 cooks were drunk, and then we had boiled fish. Oh, I don't think I ate too much of the boiled fish.
Now, going back to your time in the New York
Yeah.
Guard, you got out in 1944.
Right?
How come you got out? Did you go on to college or something?
Yes, I did. Well, I went to Russell Sage,
Mm-hmm.
and this is when after I spent the 2 years in the Army, we got discharged, and I tried to go to Yale or Princeton or Harvard, and they would send me letters back that I'd have to wait 2 to 3 years to have my applications processed, because I was a vet. So I went down to the drugstore where in Troy here, my uncle owned a drugstore, Montcrief and Francis, and he said, "Why don't you try Russell Sage?" He said, "They're taking veterans. This is the first week they're taking them." I said, I went down and I walked 2 blocks and went into Russell Sage, and I had my discharge with me, and I said, "I'm a veteran," and he said, "Yes, we'll take you. So your name and address and everything else." So there was 150 of us that started it, and then we even had a building at there called the Veterans House across the street from the French House on 1st Street in Troy.
Now, did you live there? Or
No,
you lived at home?
and nobody lived. No veterans lived there.
I see.
Everything was community, and we went to class with the girls, and we had our veteran, but then they had Vanderheiden Hall, which is for the local girls, and ours was in the next door for the Veterans House.
Mm-hmm. Now, when did you graduate from Russell Sage?
1950.
Okay. And what did you get your degree in?
Business.
Mm-hmm.
But I was one of the greatest thrills of my life is to be at Russell Sage, but see, there was only 150 of us veterans,
Yeah.
and there were 800 girls, so you had your choice.
Boy, I guess so.
And we'd go to class, and I came back from, I was in Fort Ord, California. When I discharged, I bought all the California jackets and pants so I could be the sharp thing. And they want to know who is this guy, Curley, that's coming in with the cardigans with no collars on. See, here everything was collared and all that, but that was the California style.
Ah, okay. Well, let's go back to when you were in the active Army.
Yes, yes.
Now, you went in 1946.
Right, and I went from Fort Ord to Aberdeen Proving Grounds.
Now, let me just ask you, did you enlist or were you drafted?
No, we enlisted.
Okay.
And we went from down there at Camp Dix. We were there for less than 2 weeks, and they put us on a train this one day, and they called the 120 names and said, "You're going to the Aberdeen Proving Grounds." We didn't know where Aberdeen was.
Yeah.
I didn't. We got on the train, and here we are with a doodling boat going into Aberdeen, and that was the ordnance place where they tested all the thing. So then I was in Company O in Aberdeen, and we stayed there until December 15th to do our basic training, and we did our basic training at Aberdeen. And then December 15th, we had it, and there were 500 of us that got on the train to go to California to Korea. And it was the greatest thing. Here you are, we didn't know where Korea was. We had to get a map, find out where Korea was. And we got as far as, well, it took us 5 days to go across.
Mm-hmm.
But many things happened during that. I remember when we got to Fort Ord, they brought us down there, and they weren't prepared for us, but we were there. So they used to send us out on detail and to pick up the prisoners that would escape from Fort Ord.
Now, what kind of prisoners were these?
These were deviated people that went AWOL.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And they would go AWOL, and then the cops would pick them up, and then you had to go and pick them and bring them home.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll never forget this one time. The major called me in and said, "We're going to send you and a guy named Emmons from Boston to pick up this place, and you have to go report at Maryland, go back to George Meade in Maryland." It took us 5 days to go on the train, and there was no such thing as airplanes flying back and forth. So we got on the thing, and we got down to Aberdeen, or Fort George Meade in Maryland, outside of Baltimore. Lo and behold, don't the prisoner escape? So I went to this major and said, "What do we do now? Go back to California?" No. He said, "I just talked to your company commander. He told us to take 2 weeks off." She said, "Where do you live?" I said, "In Albany, New York." I didn't tell him because I didn't know if they knew Troy.
Sure.
Lo and behold, he said, "Here, I'm going to give you a two-week pass, but I want you to come back here 2 weeks from today." I said, "I will do that." Where is this guy from?" I said, "Boston." He said, "Give him the same thing." So the two of us had a two weeks pass, so we took off, and we hitchhiked up the Pulaski Skyway, and we got into New York. And Emmons says, "I'll go the Boston, New York road, and you can go on the Henry Hudson Parkway," and that's how I get home.
So you hitchhiked?
Hitchhike, yeah, all the way up from Maryland.
Now, how was it in uniform? Did people stop and pick
Oh
you
yes,
up?
very much so.
Yeah.
I never, you talk about that. I went down in Fort Ord, I went on this thing, it was a plane at Travis Airport, and lo and behold, it took me longer because there was a ride going into Dulles Airport in Washington, and then I got another one up to Stewart Field in Newburgh, and lo and behold, it took me longer to go from Newburgh to Albany than it did coming across the country on the airplane.
Wow.
That was the greatest thing. I went in there, Travis, and the guy said to me, "Where are you going?" I said, "I want to go to New York." He said, "I'm going to, but I'll make sure that you get it." He said, "Go in the back, take your sleeping bag with you," and away I went. And that's how it all started. That was the greatest ride going across the country. I slept most of the way.
Now, you told me the other day about a story where you guys stopped in Reno, Nevada, and
Yeah,
somebody
that
robbed a
was
bank.
another one. On our way, after we did our basic training, we were going out, because there was 5,000 of us on a troop train going to Korea. And we didn't know where Korea was. So we pulled in, and with a troop train, you know, you had to pull off for everything to let the city of San Francisco train go past. All the super trains had to go ahead of you, and you were always last. So we got as far, after the 4th day, we got as far as Reno, Nevada. And I'll always remember, we stopped. And he said, "We had a 2-hour trip or a layover here to let the city of San Francisco go past us, and then we go back." So the colonel came and said, "You got 2 hours in here, you can go into town." So we went into town, which was about 15 blocks away. And you see and the next thing I know, we come back, and 2 hours later, we were on the train station. We were out 5 minutes, and then she comes stop again. I said, "What the hell is going on here?" And they said, Colonel comes in, "Everybody off the train." So we got off the train, and what was it but 2 of the men, the soldiers, went into the bank in Reno and stuck it up and grabbed the money and got. So here's I would say, in our car, there was 150 of us in the lens there, and these 3 tellers came by with 4 policemen, and they, not this guy, not that guy. All of a sudden they said, "These 2 guys over here, we want." And they took them off, and they were the 2 guys who robbed the bank.
Wow.
That was unbelievable. I still have days I close my eyes and think, see these 2 guys going in handcuffs because they robbed the bank.
Huh.
Oh, I had many experiences.
Now, did you get over to Korea at all?
No, I did not. I stayed in. The nicest thing is, when we got down to Fort Ord, I was there maybe 3 weeks, and all of a sudden they called us and said, the following men were going up, and they said, I was the first one, "You're going to C&B school." I didn't know what the hell school C&B was. It's Cook and Baker School at Presidio, San Francisco. Oh, great. So on a train, we went up to Presidio, 1 Market Street, right on the bay, and learned how to be a cook for 16 weeks.
Wow.
And it was great, because every night we went to school at 8, and we were all done at 3, so I could take off and go to see the San Francisco baseball team. Lefty O'Doul's and Joe DiMaggio's on the wharf, and all the places, Seal Rock, the Alcatraz. You'd see all the things from there. And we used to go to DiMaggio's, and DiMaggio's mother was cooking that night. And I was a very good customer to those people.
Huh. Now, when you were off, did you have to wear a uniform, or could you wear civilian clothes?
No, you had to wear your uniform.
I see.
Oh, there was none of the civilian. Now, that's the old days. I mean, when you were in the service, you wore the uniform 24 hours, or, you know, but you always had the uniform on. It wasn't until later years after the wars that they let them go in civilians. But no, we had to go in there to make sure that you got, but 16 weeks going to C&B school, it was quite a thing. You learned an awful lot, how to cut a side of beef, how to cook, how to bake, and these are the things. And then I went down back to Fort Ord as a cook. I was a mess surgeon there.
Oh, okay. So how many guys did you have to cook for?
250. But it was some of the things that I did. I mean, I had 2 other cooks that I was the boss, but I would do all the meats, and they would do the vegetables and the bakery. In other words, they did that, but I had to do the meat and make sure. And the one funny thing, and this is not funny at the time, was the old timers. These were men that just came in back from the war, and I went in. One guy was a cook. His name was Aaron Burr. I'll always remember that. I opened to see the pantry light on. I said, I wonder if I let the pantry light in. There he is. He's got a turkey with him, and he's banging the turkey. Oh, jeez!
Oh,
I gotta feed so many men off of that. So I called the provost marshal and told him what happened. He said, "Come, we'll take him." So the next thing you know, Aaron Burr was drunk, and he's in the pantry with the light on. So they grabbed him and brought him down, and I don't know what happened to Aaron Burr from then on.
You never saw him again?
Never saw him again, and I never had to call and get 3 new turkeys so the boys could have turkey on Thanksgiving Day.
Now,
that was one of the things, the sad part.
Yeah.
The guy was a drunk, and he was an alcoholic, and that was the thing. But to open that door and see him doing that to a turkey, I froze. Oh my God, you got to be a little on the wacky side.
Now, did you have to bake desserts and,
all
of
we
that?
Did that.
And cakes
We did that and make sure, and every time I found out the kids had a birthday, I would make a special cake for them, and then we'd all sing happy birthday to them. This was after the war, because you got many of the guys just came in, and they were coming in from Germany and France and Italy, and you'd always want to give them a little extra.
Now, when the guys came back from overseas, I know when I came back from Vietnam, the first meal you got, they gave everybody a steak dinner. Did you guys do that too?
We give them a turkey dinner.
Turkey dinner.
Turkey dinner, and then we give them, give them whatever they wanted. In other words, you give them a menu and say, put down what's the nicest thing you want to do today, and they'd always put turkey. Or many of them were like a stew. They used to make a beef stew with carrots and onions and those things, and they loved that because we called sloppins. In other words, to take the bread and take all the things and eat it that way. That was some of them, because most of them were on rations. You know what I mean?
Sure.
They had K rations and the different rations, and the rations weren't that great. You didn't get filled up with rations.
Now, what was the pay like back then?
I used to get $21.50. That wasn't very much.
Now, you were a sergeant, right?
Yeah, but I got $40. But see, we used to have crap games, and we used to have everything and things like that. And in our barracks, the guy was my roommate. His name was John David Stern. He used to have a rug, and he used to cut the game, so we'd split. So, we made a little extra on the side. I was never broke, I'll tell you.
Now, what was the PX system like back then?
That was great. The people that smoked, they were 10 or 15 cents a pack of cigarettes. And the movies was a dime to go to the movies. And every night, if you had the night off, you'd go down to the movies and see a different movie for 10 cents.
And this was on base?
On base. And then you'd go over to the PX, and the beers were 15 cents a can.
Oh, okay.
But you drank Lucky Lager. That was their big thing. That was the West Coast beer, like it was Budweiser or the ones Slitzer. But Lucky Lager was that, because they were the ones that broadcast the San Francisco baseball game. Lucky Lager. Did you get your Lucky Lager today?
Now, was that the old type beer can with kind of like a funnel type top on it?
Very much so.
Yeah.
And then we used to go to Kezar to see the 49ers play. 49ers was the football team.
Yeah.
And that was, and then St. Mary's in California had a great one guy called Herman Wiedemeyer. He was the outstanding player. He came from Hawaii, and could he run? And he was but the whole San Francisco Bay team, we used to hitchhike up there from Fort Ord up to San Mateo or Santa Cruz, or go that way, and you always get in there, and it never cost us anything. They had they let the servicemen in for free.
Now, Wiedemeyer, didn't he later on own a big bakery?
Yes, he did. Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. But I personally shook his hand, and I loved him because he was a real...
A friend of mine used to work for him. That's why I recognize the name.
That's true. Frankie Albert was the big football. He was the star of the whole team. Frankie Albert. He was like some of the great quarterbacks that you have today. But Wiedemeyer could run, and he was out of St. Mary's College. But you don't hear too much about that college now, but was at that time, he was the principal sportscaster of the whole, or sports player of the year.
Now, as a serviceman, did you get a lot of free tickets to get to?
We used to go down to the USO. That was the greatest thing. My roommate in Fort Ord was John David Stern, and his father was president of Gulf Oil in the 40s, and he got us tickets to the Rose Bowl game, and I was at the Rose Bowl game in '47, and that was the game between SC, which is Southern California, against the mighty Michigan team, and that's when Michigan buried them 49-0. And who sat next to me but William Bendix?
Oh, really?
The Life of Riley.
Oh, yeah.
He sat next to me and he ate 6 hot dogs in one session. Where the hell did he put him? I mean, arguing around, and he's pushing the hot dogs in his mouth.
Was he friendly?
Oh, he was friendly. He put his arm around me. We got 2 or 3 pictures of where are you stationed, soldier? And I said, at Fort Ord. I'm with John David Stern, and he got a big kick out of that. And he was the Life of Riley, but he was big. I mean, he was not a little man by any means.
Unfortunately, I think he died before his time, though.
Yes, he did, and that's what. But I'll tell you one thing: he ate well and ate a lot.
Yeah. Now, did you continue to be a cook for your?
Oh no! After I got out of service, my mother said I wasted too much because she would do a little of this, a pinch of that, and I didn't do that. I knew just what I was doing, but that was not my main thing was to get a college education and go to Wall Street. And I was down on Wall Street for 5 years with Bache and Company, J.H. Bache at 36 Wall, and then I went around because Hayden Stone wanted me, and they paid me $100 more than Bache would pay me, and be a stockbroker. But what a great career! But I got bleeding ulcers.
Yeah. Let me just go back a little bit. Okay, when you were discharged from the service,
yes,
were you able to make use of the GI Bill?
Yes, I was. That's what I was able to go to college because my father died when I was a senior in high school, and my mother had to go back to the collar shop, Gluwitz, and where she worked sewing shirts. Yep. And it was just my sister and I there, and my sister worked for F.W. Woolworth's at 5 and 10, yes. And the 5 and 10 cent store. And because I had an aunt that was the manager, she put my sister to work, and I used to peddle papers. And from peddle papers, I went to the bowling alley and set up bowling pin because I could make more money getting a nickel a game over in Domino's in Green Island. Oh yeah, and then you get 20 games, you get $1, and in that buck, you could go. My mother used to give me a dime to go to the movies and get a plate at the Rose Theater in Troy. You'd go every Friday and watch Tom Mix. Oh yeah. And Saturday was Tom Mix Day, and you get a plate. And by the time I was there 6 times, we had 6 plates. My mother said they all came from the Rose Theater.
Now, the GI Bill back then,
yes.
Did they give you? Was the money sufficient?
No, never sufficient. You get $75 a month. And I'll tell you, I used to go, when I went to Russell Sage, I worked at the Tavern in Troy, which was a very popular place, because my sister was a friend of the son of the guy that owned it, the Al and Chick Reno. And they owned it, and they also owned Fan and Bill's up in Lake George. So they said, yes, he can come down to the college, work in the college room. They had a big room with a jukebox, and all the people from RPI and Russell Sage would meet down in the college room. And you had most of the guys from Peru and Colombia and all them, they would come down, and they were very well-to-do, and they always had 5 and 10 to spend dollars, which was a lot of money at that time. And so they used to come to me and say, can you give me a number? So for a girl, so I go up and ask the bartender, I go up the stairs and say, these guys wanted numbers. Jones, Jackie Jones, the bartender, I'll give you 3 or 4 numbers, you can get them. So he gives these guys the numbers, gives me a list. So the guy said, how much you want for the numbers? I said, $2. So what do you think the numbers were? The cemetery.
Now the girls, was this for dancing?
Yes,
okay.
The jukebox. And it cost, you got five tunes for a quarter. Yeah. And the girls would dance with the boys downstairs. Oh. And they loved it, you know, and they were away from the dining area and everything. They had their own room down there at Reno. And I worked there for 3 years. And he paid me well. I said, well, you know, I got $15 for 2 nights, but it was fun.
Now, back when you were going to the USO shows,
Yes.
did you see any big name
Oh, very
celebrities?
much so, very much so. I met a girl named Elizabeth Scott, who was Hal Wallace. He was a production. She came down one day and she asked me where I was stationed. I said I was at Fort Ord in Monterey. She said, I'm going to be up there at Carmel. So I said, well, I'd love to meet you. She said, all right, I'll give you my date and then tell you where I'm going to be and everything else. And I took her out twice, Elizabeth Scott. She was a long blonde.
Oh, really?
Oh, she was fantastic. But she was from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and her name was Sarah DeVecchio. I'll always remember my 2 dates with Sarah DeVecchio, called Elizabeth Scott.
Now, was she a movie star?
Yeah, she was a movie star. She made 20 movies
Oh.
for Hal Wallace, who was the big production manager.
Sure.
He was fantastic. And she was like a girlfriend of Hal Wallace. But she traveled up to Carmel on the Z. We went to Del Monte Country Club up there where they play golf now.
Mm-hmm.
And another one I wanted to tell you about, Del Monte weekends, they gave the soldiers at Fort Ord, we could go down when the Bob Hope big golf tournament was there, and lo and behold, they told us, they put up a big sign that anybody that wanted to caddy for 3 holes, you could caddy over there for the Pro-Am. So I signed up. I was the first one to sign up, and I had caddy for Frank Stranahan, whose father owned the Champion Spark Plug Company. And I carried his bag for 3 holes, and he flipped me a $5 bill. $5 at that time was a lot of money.
Sure.
I was only getting 17 or 20, and on the Army, $21 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Army, and here's a guy, he had a big yellow Cadillac convertible, and he always had 50s on. I used to say, Frank Stranahan. He was a muscle builder, and the girls were just crazy about Frank. Well, I had a fabulous life.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it sounds pretty interesting.
And, you know...
So when you got out of the Army, did they try to get you to stay?
Oh, very much so. They brought me in 3 times. They wanted me to sign, but I told my mother that I'm going to be discharged on St. Patrick's Day. So she gets a train, and she lands in Oakland, but I'm going to be in San Francisco. So she's waiting for me over in Oakland, and the cop, she asked the cop what time. She said, he's over in San Francisco. You got to take the ferry across the bay. So she took the ferry on the bay, and I waited for the ferry to come in, and I could see her waving to me. Oh, we stayed a month in San Francisco with I got $1,800 discharge money.
Yep.
So I gave it to her so she could mine it, because she was like a miser. She knew everybody, because to me, it was all money that I won on the crap game.
Oh, I see. Okay. Now, when you, after you left the service, did you stay in touch with anyone that...
Oh, very much so. I still have Christmas cards from 4 of them.
Oh, really?
And they were my roommates. John David Stern, Liz Still, he's a lawyer in Los Angeles. Horace Crowley, Horace is in Atlanta, Georgia. He was with Keebler Cracker Company. And Gene DeVoe was from Boston. He lived in Waltham, Massachusetts. And DeVoe, who was the second cook under me, in other words, he lived in Waltham, Massachusetts, and later became a cop over there.
Oh.
The funniest thing was, I was driving and looking for him one day, and all of a sudden the cops at the police department said he's at a corner of such and such a street. And I come, and he puts his hand up, and I kept on going with my car. And he said, I told you to stop. I said, frig you. And he rolled down, and he said, you son of a bitch, I should arrest you. Well, I had some great things happen.
Now, did you join any organizations like the Legion?
Oh, yes, I'm a member of the American Legion.
Uh-huh.
I can show you my card and all that. I don't belong to any post or anything, but I belong to the American Legion. I pay my dues, and that's it, because they're too cliquey. And where I live in Green Island, the American Legion was all political. So I said, no, that's not for me. I'm going to vote who I want to vote for. But I still believe in the American Legion. They do a good job.
Yep. Oh, you mentioned the other day, too, that you ended up being involved with the New York Division of Military
Yes,
Naval
I did.
Affairs.
For Alan C. O'Hare, he was a two-star general out of Buffalo, New York.
Mhm.
And he was a very good friend of mine, and I was his press officer.
Now, how did all that transpire?
There was an opening, and somebody told General O'Hara that there was a guy named Curley that was pretty sharp. So I got this thing from one of these Division of Military and Naval Affairs, Jim Berkery. We used to have a basketball team up in the Armory, and we used to play at the different armories, the Saratoga Armory, the Whitehall Armory, the Troy Armory. We had a league, and we played. There was eight armories involved, and every Sunday we play a doubleheader at different armories. So that's how I got to get to know who these were. Colonel Berkery, Jimmy Berkery, is the one that told O'Hara, the general, that this guy can do anything and everything.
Now, were you involved with the Guard? I mean, were you in the National Guard?
No, I was never in the National Guard. I was always with Division of Military and Naval Affairs.
As a civilian?
As a civilian, right.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew everybody there, from General Baker. General O'Hara was the boss man, and then Baker was second in command, and Berkery was like third in command. He was a colonel.
Now, when was this?
This was, back in the 60s.
Mm-hmm. And whereabouts were you?
There was in Building 23.
Over at the
campus.
Okay.
Long before they went out to the what do you call it?
Out there on Wade Road.
Yeah. Right. But they were in Building 23.
Mm-hmm.
And I was with General O'Hara, and I love him. Elmer C. O'Hara.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a good one. He was out of Buffalo, and he was later owned a business out there, some kind of a paper business. I later went to Buffalo for Nelson Rockefeller,
Mm-hmm.
and I stayed in Buffalo for 6 years with the division that was a New York State what do you call it, insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
I was a job that after I raised George Pataki $2.5 million myself. And on the phone, at that time I was working for the New York State Republican Party at 315 State Street. And lo and behold, I got on that phone and got this money. So Pataki called me one night and he said, "What job do you want?" And that's how it all started.
Oh, okay. Going back to when you were working with General O'Hara,
Yeah.
Was that a paid position?
Yes,
that
it was. Yes.
A full-time position?
It was a full-time position, and I did so much. I did most of his work for, like in the morning, I'd be there at 8:30, and I worked till 1, and then I had another job on the side,
Mm-hmm.
and nothing big, but I always made sure his press reports got out.
Mm-hmm.
He was a good one.
Yeah.
So was Berkery. Berkery was a dear friend of mine, because we played on the same basketball team together.
Mm-hmm. All right. And let's see, you mentioned being involved with the Republican Party.
Yes, that was I'm still...
You still are?
Yes, very much so, because I wanted to see Kathy Marciano win up in Saratoga, and I went out and really worked hard. I got her 30 votes,
Oh.
and now she's in the thing with the absentee, but I remember giving her 30 absentee votes that I got for her, and they're all legit and honest, and I just hope she wins.
Mm-hmm. What about, have you been involved in Rensselaer County politics?
Well, no, but I have many friends.
Mhm.
I after you come to a certain age, I wanted to just lay low and stay. But my friend Pat Casal was the assemblyman, and when he ran for mayor of Troy, I was his campaign manager, and did all the sending out the flyers and his set and the pictures and everything else.
Mhm.
And he's still my dearest friend, because he worked for me in Green Island when I ran a store over there.
Okay. How do you think your time in the service changed or affected your life?
Oh, you learn an awful lot fast.
Uh-huh.
If you're not on the ball, believe me, they run right over the top of you.
Mhm. Do you think you would have gone on to college if it wasn't for the GI Bill?
No, I would never go to college because we didn't have any money.
Mhm.
And that's the main thing. It wasn't for the GI Bill, I wouldn't have never even been any place. I'd have been probably a ditch digger or something like that, because it was the GI that paid everything. I'll never forget going down to Russell Sage. He said, "What is this called? We sign this paper and the government is taking care of you." and you're going to get $75 a month. And my eyes opened up, and Dr. Louis A. Froman, who was president of Russell Sage, came in from Buffalo, and he explained everything, how he had 175. And with our money, he built the freshman dorm down there with the money he got from the veterans. But I got to tell you one other thing, the funniest thing about going to Russell Sage. I met this gal down there who was in the French house, and her name was Christine Chantafillo. And Christine wanted to know where the Cahoes manufacturing was. So I said I had a car at that time, and I would take you over at 9 o'clock. So I went to the French house and picked her up. She was the French instructor from Paris over there. So I took her over to Cahoes Manufacturing, and I said, I'll pick you up at 12 o'clock. Oh no, I'll be there till 5. I said, 5? You're going to be 7 hours in the Cahoes Manufacturing. She said, I got to buy shoes. I have 4 sisters. And I take my pay here, because it didn't cost me anything, to buy the shoes for my sister. The shoes I buy here is $200. Over there, $500 in Paris. On the Champs-Élysées. I said, all right, that's fine. And lo and behold, she came back after the 6th trip that I took her over back. She said, now we're coming up. She said, how would you like my mother and I go south of France to Cannes for the whole month of August? Would you like our apartment? Would I like your apartment for free? Yes, I would love your apartment. So I went down, and she gave me the key to her apartment, and I would get on to Freddie Laker's airline, $99 one way to Paris. And I knew I could make enough of money hustling over in Paris. So lo and behold, I go down, it's standby. You have to go, the plane left at 6, I was there at 4, and I was number 1 standby. So I gave him the $100 bill, and I got $1 back, and the captain comes and says, I'll take 3. Said I was the first one. So I got on the plane and went to Paris and put the blanket over me, and wake up at 7 in the morning, circling Paris, and got off and went on the metro and went right to Gare Saint-Lazare and had that apartment. I did that for 4 years, and it was wonderful.
Well, what did you do in Paris?
What did I do? I went to the Eiffel Tower as the first place, and I see all these Japanese school buses coming in. He'd take a picture of her, she'd take a picture of him, but there was nobody putting both of them together. So I would put both of them together and take 4 pictures, 5 pictures, and then I'd put my hand out. Whatever they gave me was all free. And the first day I come out, I got something like 1,500 francs. And at that time it was like 3 to 1 or 4 to 1, the American dollar. And that's how I lived over there. And the next day I went to the Louvre, and that's the art museums.
Yeah.
And the Louvre, and I sat out in front, and the same buses would bring these Japanese tourists over there. And I went around and see if he'd take a picture of her, she'd take a picture of him. Nobody put mine. I was the guy that negotiated. But I was afraid to go back only because I didn't know the rules and regulations of the French. And so I didn't want to get picked up for doing something I did was illegal or anything.
Now, did you speak French?
I learned, I'm sure I get through. Every night I went out to dinner at a different place and tried to explain my French. But see, they have a row of, in the West Bank of Paris, it's nothing but college kids. And they have maybe 30 or 40 restaurants in a row. And they put their menu out in the front on the door, so you look to see what the specials were in each one of them, and that's how you got the best.
Ah, I see. Now, did you get married along the way?
Well, yes, that was another funny thing. I was a stockbroker, as I told you, with a Dacian company at 128 State Street, and I bought a brand new car. On the third year I was there at Hayden Stone. Hayden Stone, and lo and behold, I went to Cartwright in Troy, New York, and bought a blue convertible with white upholstery. So these 2 doctors and a friend of mine who was running floors, the 4 of us would go out to dinner every Sunday at 2 o'clock, and we went up to Lake George, and we were coming back down Route 9, and all of a sudden in the new car, these 2 girls come and they start tooting at us. And so I my friend Jim Barrett, the florist, said, let's see you follow him up, go past him, and then the doghouse is down here at the restaurant. So we swing in the doghouse, they swing in the pond. So lo and behold, they followed us in. They said, come on and have a drink. So I said to this girl, where do you work? She said, I work at the governor's office. And I said, you're kidding me. And she said, no. She said, I'm Governor Harriman's secretary. Oh, I said, come on in, we'll have a drink. So her and her girlfriend came in and had a drink with the four men. And so when she was leaving, I said, I'd like to take you to lunch. I said, I work at 128 State Street in Albany. And she said, all right, I'll meet you at the DeWitt. So I said, 1 o'clock. So I walk up, 5 minutes to 1, and I'll see her coming down the Capitol steps. And that's how it all started. Huh. And a year later, I took her out for a whole year. And that's when I met the great Senator Patrick Moynihan. He came in and he was working for Harriman, and Pat and Liz, his wife, Liz Brennan, met on a bus coming doing campaigning. So the Moynihans lived in Queens, and they would come to our house every Friday night for dinner, and then we'd go out on Saturday. Oh. And the other ones were Mr. Jonathan Bingham, who was the great Bingham, and the other one was Buckley. Oh, Buckley was a dear friend of mine.
William F. Buckley?
William F. Buckley. And the Binghams, Hiram Bingham was the United States Senator from Connecticut, and he was a Republican. But Jonathan, who was the governor's secretary, he married Governor Lehman's niece, and they were all Democrats.
Okay. And did you have any children?
No. We didn't, and she died with colon cancer.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
Yeah. So I've been, for the last 20 years, single year, and I'm 85 years old.
Okay. All right, is there, we're down to another 15 minutes or so. Is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I've had a fabulous life. I've been all over the world. When I was in Paris, every year I was in Paris for 6 years, I would go to the different places. And I took the Eurail train, and I went down to Corfu in Greece and Athens, and I went to Hungary and went to in Turkey, Ankara, and I wanted to see. That's why I was in 43 countries. I've been all over the world as far as that. I've never been to China or Japan or any of that. That didn't excite me. But I did go back to Switzerland, and I went to Portugal, and went to Spain. And I enjoyed, but southern France was the greatest place I've ever been, and I'd go there tomorrow to relax.
Did you develop a taste for the French wines?
Oh, did I? That's very costly, I'll tell you. But it's very good. I mean, you know it. But I still drink the regular wine. But when I had company that wanted to take me to dinner, we'd go to the real French wine and take the French wine list, and I knew what to order and all that, but my pocketbook never would enjoy it.
Now, do you come to the senior center every day?
Yeah, well, I'm out 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you do here normally?
Normally, I read my papers. I read 4 papers a day. I read the Daily News, the Mirror, U.S. Today, and the Troy Record. I got to be on top of every situation. Because, like last night, I got a call from a man from the Times Union. He says, you know everything. What do you want to know? I want to know who's going to win the Marciano thing. I said, you bet your money on Marciano. Because I know she's 122 points votes ahead. And lo and behold, the amount of, there's 1,000 absentees. So I did the figuring, showed him where if he gets half of it, and he gets the other half, he's got to get 75% of the absentees. I sent 30 in, and I know how many more that she got. You follow me? So she's a winner, unless they screw it up. But they got, what's his name up there, Congressman was in the trouble, and he knows the game from A to Z.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for your interview.
I hope it's what you want. I know you'll enjoy it.
Oh, definitely.
And